So for this project, I'm going to be making an iris, and what I need is some pieces of very curved glass like this. And if you want curved glass, the smaller the diameter of the vase or bowl or whatever you're using, the more curved the glass will be. So a larger diameter, it will be flatter but have a slight curve. A smaller diameter vase will have more of a rounded curve. And I'm just going to go through this part slow for those of you who don't know how to nip glass. And for those of you who do, just fast forward through this part. So some of the petals need to be really curved just like that. And all I'm doing is going around the perimeter of the top of the vase, nipping off a piece of glass. This one's huge. I didn't need one this big, but you can just nip it into the shape that you want. Usually when you nip a piece of glass along the edge of the perimeter, you end up with a pointy end and a fatter end at the other side. Sometimes the other side ends up pointy also, but most of these for this case are pointy at one end and fatter at the other, and the fatter end I am just shaping into a rounded top because I want petals for the iris. And I'm just, like I said, I'm just going to go slow and go around the perimeter to make it a rounded top. I am using the C-Bell nippers. The C-Bell nippers have a blue or teal rubber just past the blade, and it holds the piece of glass in place instead of making it fly. And those are the that's the kind of glass I want curved just like that. And see how they are? That's perfect. That's with a smaller diameter vase. Now I'm using a larger diameter vase, and some of the petals on the flower I want straighter, flatter, not as curved, more like this. And if you notice, this glass is super thick. The thicker the glass, the easier it is to shape. And don't pay any attention that it has nip marks all over it and it doesn't look perfectly smooth. Once you tumble it, paint it, and pour resin over it, you won't even notice. And here I am, I nipped a great big piece of glass, and I'm going to shape this into another petal. And again, this is a larger diameter vase, so they will not be as curved. It will be more of a flat glass. And don't be fooled by the teal rubber rings. The glass doesn't fly, but it can. You still need to wear eye protection because there are some shards that come off of it sometime, and you really need to protect yourself. And see how that is? So here you go. Those are the curved ones from the smaller diameter vase. And here is this vase here. That's what I had just done prior to this. And now here is the other petal from the larger diameter vase, and see how that's not as curved. It's flatter. So the diameter of the vase is what gives you your curve. So that was from the big one, the last one that I showed you. I actually had cut up a bunch of the curved and flatter pieces of glass. I didn't want to bore you with it. And after it was all cut up, I threw it in my Vavor tumbler, the curved pieces along with the other flatter pieces. And I just added a little bit of water to the tumbler so that it just covered the glass, a squirt of Dawn dish spray. And the Dawn dish spray, all that does is clean the glass. It doesn't have anything to do with taking the sharp edges off. Then I put it on the Vavor tumbler for 1 hour. Now, the tumblers always have speed settings, and they also have number of day settings. This one you can set up to 9 days and up to 4 different speeds. And this would be used if you're tumbling glass to make faux sea glass. But we're only doing it to take the sharp edges off, so we only have to do it for 1 hour. The thinner the glass, the longer you have to do it. The thicker glass within 1 hour is ready to take off the tumbler. If it's real thin, it seems sharper, and sometimes you have to do it up to 2 hours. 1 hour, I dumped it into a colander, rinsed it off, and then dumped it out onto a drying mat. and now it is no longer sharp. You can run your finger across it, and there's no threat of cutting yourself. It's so easy to do. So this board that I have here, I actually picked up at a garage sale. There was a lady selling these boards. It actually has a stand on the back, and she used to put display jewelry on it at sales. I guess she used to sell handmade jewelry. And anyway, I picked up a few different boards from her, and this one I'm going to use to display the flower. And I cleaned it off real good, and then I used Mod Podge to seal the wood. I just gave it one good coat of full strength Mod Podge. So next I spray the glass with the Tamiya translucent spray paint, and I mess up on this, but I kept this in here because I wanted to show you something. So I went ahead and sprayed it, and I wanted to flip the glass over to get the other side, but when I did that, I messed it up. So I just took a clean cloth and quickly went over it and removed the spray paint. If you do this right away, you can just take the spray paint right off. And if the spray paint is on there and you don't like the way it looks and it's already dried, you can throw it back in the tumbler for an hour and it will take all the spray paint off of it. That's another tip. But anyway, I just took a clean cloth and I cleaned off all the spray paint, and I sprayed it. And because this is kind of sitting at an angle, I had to come back and do it, kind of give it a lighter coat and then come back and do it one more time, because I didn't want to put too much on that it, started dripping down and accumulated on one edge. So next I took some stained glass, and this is to make the leaves for the iris. And I am not an expert stained glass cutter by any means, but I did learn to cut stained glass by watching free YouTube videos. And there are literally hundreds of them out there. Really good stained glass cutting videos. And so I cut a bunch of leaves for the flowers, and the first time I did it, I think I made them too large, and I ended up having to come back and cut some of them smaller. And then I took them out to the garage. You can tumble this if you have a large enough tumbler, and most of them will stay intact, but I chose to take this out to the garage and use my stained glass grinder and go along the edges. This stained glass, once you cut it, is so sharp, it's unbelievable. I actually slit my finger twice on this glass right here. So it's in your best interest to grind the edges, or you could even use like a sanding block if you don't have a stained glass grinder, and go over all the edges. Then I used soap and water and washed them off and laid them on a drying mat to dry. So the first thing I did with the flower petals is I took the three that are supposed to be at the top of the flower, kind of standing up like this, and I'm going to fuse them together with UV resin. So I take the first two petals, put a little bit of UV resin on it, and put one on top of the other, and then put the UV light on it. And then after that is set, I use the second, take the next petal and put a little bit of UV resin on it, and put the other petal on top of it, and again use the UV light to hold it together. Then all three of them are fused together, and you don't have to worry about them falling apart. They're kind of arched. And then I had purchased this iris from Hobby Lobby, just so I had an example to go by. And that center top part is that I'm pointing at there. And then these are going to be the three sides. Those two are on the side, and then the other one is going to be kind of protruding up at the very bottom there. But in order to get it to stand up, I decided instead of having the very pointed edge, I'm going to go ahead and nip that little edge off of there. Then I went ahead and I took some UV resin. This is the high viscosity. It won't run as much. And I wanted to attach that one piece to the very bottom of the three that I had just fused together. And you have to hold it for about 30 seconds. Then after the 30 seconds, it should stand up on its own. You can let go and just leave the UV light on top of it. And now you can see how it's fused to the other three flowers. So I'll show you another way to do it later, but So I think that's kind of cool. And I really didn't need to attach these other two on the sides because those would have laid fine on the board. But I decided as long as I've gotten this far, I'll go ahead and I'll attach the other two. And I just put a little bit more UV resin on it, put the light on it, and it was all one piece. So didn't that turn out cool? So now it's all fused together. And that resin that you see on there, the UV resin, once you pour your regular resin over it, it'll totally disappear within it. You won't even notice it. So now here I'm showing you the iris and how it has the little fuzzy yellow on there. I'm not sure if all irises have that, but I decided to put that on using some yellow crushed glass. And this is actually ASHLAND decorative filler that I've sprayed with the Tamaya yellow spray paint. And I just put a little UV resin down, sprinkled a little bit of the glass on, kind of shaped it, put the UV light on it, and moved on to the next. So next I'm preparing the back of the wood board, and what I'm using is painter's tape to put along the back of it, along the perimeter, so that when you pour resin on the other side, the resin will leave drip marks on the back. This way you can just pull the tape up and it will remove the drip marks at the same time. After that was taken care of, I decided I wanted to make some buds, and I have a little stem and a little piece of green glass and a flower bud out of the same blue glass that I've just nipped smaller, and I attach it all with the UV resin. And really you don't have to attach it with the UV resin. I just thought it would be easier to attach that small piece of green glass to the blue bud and the long green stem with UV resin. It would be easier to balance. It wouldn't be easy to balance it, so I thought if I used the UV resin, it would make it much easier. I also end up attaching a green piece of glass to the very bottom of the flower, and then here's the stems. And if you look online and look at photos of irises, they do have the buds coming off the main stem of the iris. So that's why I did it like that, because I thought, well, that looks kind of funny, but that's really how it is. If you look up the pictures of the irises, that's really what it looks like. So after that, I just kind of messed around with putting glass down at the bottom. This glass here is gold reflective glass that I had spray painted green. And then because the whole thing had so much green on it, I decided I needed to add some more colors. So I added a little bit of, I don't know if they were like little tiny blue and yellow beads at the very bottom, just to give it a little bit more color. And then I messed around with some of the leaves a little bit more. So next I put the resin on, and I thought I was filming when I started, but when I do resin, I usually drizzle it over the glass at the bottom first, and that you just want to drizzle. You don't want to flood because then it will stay sparkly. But the rest of the glass, I really want it covered well in the canvas, and I like it to drip around the edges. I like the edges all covered with resin. And I'll usually run my finger along the edges to make sure every part of it has resin on it. Now, after I'm done resining a project, I always come back every 15 minutes to check for glass placement to make sure nothing's shifted. I check for bubbles and retorch if I need to, and I also check for sediment and use a little toothpick to get that out. And this one I decided it just needed a little more color, so I started taking that same yellow glass that I had put on the petals of the iris and sprinkling it around, and it just added something to it. It just needed a little bit more color. I sprinkled it on the glass at the bottom, I sprinkled it all around on the wood plank, and as you can see at the very top, I ended up adding a little, I think it's a bee. And with these little brooches that you get, it's best if you remove the pin on the back, so that it can set flat. Some of them are more difficult to get off. You just have to be careful that you don't. I have ruined a brooch before trying to get the pin off the back. The resin I used for this project was KS resin. It's a doming or a coating resin. It works really well on canvases or wood substrates like this. It cures best at temperatures between 75 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit. All resins are different. You need to read the directions for the resin that you are using. It's in your best interest to cover it with a dust cover when you are done. Here I am the next morning. It's all set up, not totally cured yet, but it is set enough that you can touch it. And I'm taking the tape off, and along with it comes all the drips or any resin that's gone underneath. And yes, some pieces can be difficult to get up, and I'm using my fingernail. But any part that you can't get up, if you just go ahead and grab a heat gun and heat the tape up in that area, it will come right off. You'll find that it's very simple. You can see once I heat it up, it pulls right off. Hey everyone, another flower. I'm going to be making another flower next week too, or trying to, with the same rounded petals, only a totally different flower. Anyway, I think it turned out real pretty. I used the UV resin to put that flower together and to make this stand up like that. Now this one isn't actually touching either, I don't think, so they're all kind of standing up, and these are kind of on their side in the center, they're standing up. But you could do it with without any UV resin and just have this laying down and balancing those two and the ones on there. Just for me, I get real frustrated when I'm trying to put resin on and balancing glass and, you know, doing all that at the same time. So it was in my best interest. And this glass that I put on top of here, if you're not going to use UV resin, you could always glue it on ahead of time. And just let it completely dry. So at the end of the video, I decided at the last minute to put more yellow glass all over the canvas. And I think that turned out real pretty. Several times I'm going to show you that bottom. Isn't the bottom glass so pretty with the different colors in there? So a lot of times at the end when I'm making something and at the last minute I'll sprinkle glass in the resin and then I'll regret it after. But this is the first time I don't think I've regretted it. I really think it needed some extra color, and that's why I put that yellow on there, because otherwise it was just blue and green with a tiny bit of yellow up there. So anyway, all in all, I think it turned out pretty. I did do a iris one other time a couple of years ago with sea glass. I have a sea glass window in the back room, which I'll show you. Center ones are my sea glass irises. Anyway, the middle one is the iris, and I thought that turned out kind of cute, and that was not, you know, I didn't have that standing up or anything. It was just the flat sea glass, but I thought it turned out pretty cool. So anyway, all in all, and then the buds on here, I guess the buds come right off the main stem. When I was looking at the pictures on the internet, that's how it is. I almost wished I would have made them a tiny bit bigger, but I think it turned out okay, like the bumblebee at the top too. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you enjoyed the channel, go ahead and subscribe, hit the bell, and you'll be notified every time I upload a video. I try to upload one every Friday. We have the Facebook page going, an amazing group of people displaying beautiful artwork, people from beginners to very experienced glass artists who've been doing it for years. Everybody's so helpful, and you know, try to answer any questions you have. No question is too silly. Come join us there, and I hope you guys all have a great day. Thanks for watching.
Let's take it slow. Where you go, I go too. And if you hit the bottom, I'm going down with you. Let's take it slow. Who cares where we gotta be? You know you'll have a good time wherever you're with me. Let's take it